Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session Modernize, Integrate, Accelerate the New Age of Legacy Transformation. And I'm Richa Pawar, and I'll be your host for the day. On behalf of ASEA and Pega System, thank you for taking the time to be with us. We are thrilled to have you here as we explore how leading BFSI organizations are transforming legacy systems into modern digital ecosystems using AI powered low code innovation. Before we get started, we would like to go over a few house rules. The session will be in listen only mode and will last for an hour, out of which last 10 minutes will be dedicated to Q&A. The session is being recorded and we will share the recording and key insights with you after the webinar. All attendees are on mute by default, so ensure the best audio experience. If you face any audio video challenges, request you to log out and log in again. We encourage you to engage actively, so request you all to please drop your questions anytime in the Q&A panel. And towards the end, we'll have a dedicated Q&A segment where our speakers will answer your question live. So it's my pleasure to introduce our speakers for today. First, we have Stephen Say, Vice President, Sales and Customer Success, ANZ at ASE. Stephen brings over 20 years of consulting experience, having worked with clients across financial services, insurance, communication, utilities, retail, and FMCG. He's deeply passionate about helping organizations achieve growth through technology-driven business transformation. Joining Stephen is Nilesh Trivedi, Lead Solution Consulting Pega. Nilesh has over 25 years of experience in technology, consulting, and currently leads a high performing team of solutions consulting at Pega Asia. His expertise spans AI, intelligent automation, CRM, cloud modernization, and real time customer engagement. Together, Stephen and Nilesh will walk us through our BFSI organization on modernizing legacy system without disruption, leveraging Pega Blueprint, AI, and low code to accelerate innovation. So, without any further ado, I hand over the session to you, Steve.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Richard. And look, if we just jump to the next slide, look, I guess for me, I'm just going to start today talking a little bit around, why legacy transformation is important within the BFSI industry. And if we just jump to the next slide, for me, there's a huge number of challenges and threats across this space, across the market, regardless of geography. They're global pressures and threats. And I think for me, you can kind of categorize them into twofold. One is, internal threats and pressures. So, digital first banks emerging in various different markets and locations, all about digital application, digital customer experience. Then you have more traditional banks that are driving extreme innovation, bringing unique product sets to market and so forth. Equally, on the external front, there's a huge amount of regulatory pressure as well, both internationally as well as then specific compliance requirements in individual markets. If we just jump to the next slide. And sort of just drilling down a little bit further around this. For me, some of those challenges, particularly those external, are really around customer expectations. So in the digital age that we're all in currently, digital frictionless sales and service experience is paramount. People don't want to spend 45 minutes on a phone to someone. They don't want to queue up at a branch. They want an outcome on a mobile application in front of them, and a guided experience on that mobile or digital interaction to get the outcome that they need as quickly and as seamlessly as possible, without any hassle and without any paperwork, as you'd traditionally call it. Equally, when you look at the way that many BFSI organizations are structured today, there's a huge amount of legacy, right? And that's not just technology legacy with your traditional old core banking systems, but you've got product legacy, right? Products that were sold 25 years ago as home loans or mortgages, they still exist. They still need to be serviced and dealt with. Same for channels, right? You've got the traditional contact center, you've still got branches. There's obviously a big push towards digital channels. But again, that various footprint of legacy means typically disjointed customer experiences, complex employee experiences, and complex employee journeys, right? And that's across both sales and service. And I guess the other one really is around pressure with respect to efficiency and cost reduction. So again, shareholder value is paramount across many financial services and insurance organizations. Um, and actually being able to manage compliance demands and make sure that technology approach business models are fit for purpose to drive and ensure and support that is absolutely critical. Next slide, please. And really what we see is a set of, initiatives, if you like, or concepts that really shine and come to light in order to drive excellence, as an industry trend. So we've talked about customer experience, we've talked about operational efficiency, employees, right? There's a lot of talk around customer, but employee engagement, satisfaction is absolutely important. They need to be happy, they need to be comfortable and confident to be able to engage in the way that they work. From a regulatory and risk point of view, internal and external policies need to be executed flawlessly. So, that compliance requirement, that auditability, that traceability needs to be immaculate. And of course, and for me, the big one that we're going to touch upon today is, of course, digital transformation, right? So how do you take all of that legacy complexity and actually modernize that in a way that underpins everything we've just talked about? If we just go to the next slide, please. And really, for me, banking should be that integrated, frictionless experience, right? So, and even if that means that the underlying footprint of systems doesn't mean technology systems per se. It could mean technology systems. It could mean business operating systems, processes, journeys, etc. So even if those systems that sit underneath and run the bank are not integrated and frictionless, having that experience on top of that is absolutely important, and the agility to respond to that is paramount. And so for me, there's a huge amount of opportunity to deploy targeted AI across different parts of BFSI organizations and drive that connected journey to improve outcomes, remove that legacy, baggage, if you will, and actually then drive down the cost of service. Next slide, please. And so when I look at the industry and for those organizations that we work with that are really leading the charge and really transforming, how they operate, it really comes down to a handful of core disciplines, really. First and foremost, it's around transitioning to that right blend of digital and human interaction, right? So, having 100% digital, absolutely important for a lot of banks or insurers. But I guess from a more traditional sense, having that right blend of digital and existing human in the loop interaction is crucial as well. There are still segments of customers that prefer the more traditional sense, so making sure that blend is right is absolutely important. And I guess what comes with that is the idea of reimagining the experiences that sit within that. So that unified end-to-end customer engagement. So if I, as a customer, am engaging with a bank, and I'm engaging around a particular product, let's say a credit card application, I want that experience to be very personal and relevant to me, right? I'm not interested in home loans per se. I'm not interested in commercial banking. At that point in time in that journey, all I care about is my credit card application and actually supporting me through that journey to get to the outcome, which is a credit card applied for and a credit card granted, is what's center for me at that point in time. And I guess what comes with that is obviously, efficiency drives, so introducing automation, we're seeing banks introduce intelligence into some of those processes across the end-to-end orchestration of these journeys. And really the focus being around, driving that optimal outcome across the piece. And of course, at the end of the day, right, if this stuff takes a lot of time to do, it's not very nimble, right? So it needs to be agile. It needs to be quick to deploy, to change, to manage, and to roll out. And it needs to be done very, very quickly without disrupting any core systems. So, if a new product comes to market, how do you get that deployed into the respective channels and provide that connected experience without disrupting anything or anything that's stable or consistent across the enterprise. Next slide, please. And for me, a lot of leaders in this space are then using AI to really underpin that and support the execution of what I just talked about. And I'll explain this slide in from a couple of different perspectives, but over on the left-hand side there, it's really around personalizing every interaction, which I've touched upon, and making sure that the experience is aligned to the goal and the outcome the customer's trying to achieve. But equally, on the right-hand side, it's all about driving the efficiency across that process. So more of an internal lens in many ways. So you're keeping cost minimized. The cost of service remains low. The employee experience is succinct, and that intersection point is really where AI provides the sweet spot, if you will, and it's getting that right balance to ensure the right outcome in a timely manner. Next slide, please. Now, AI, of course, is a very widely thrown around term at the moment, right? And I think for me, there's a lot of noise in the marketplace around companies deploying agents, right? Agents everywhere. Agents can do this, agents can do that. But actually, what we're seeing is a lot of that is prompt-based agents, right? And let me talk about what I mean by that. So, prompt-based agent, the perception is, and the positioning from a lot of organizations is there will be an agent deployed that allows for a task to be completed, and the idea that it's left to roam in the wild and do what it wants to do, and people will interact with this agent and they get all the answers they need back, right? But for me, that's great for simple tasks at a very small scale, but it lacks governance, right? All of the compliance and regulatory aspects that I've touched upon, that sort of model lacks governance and auditability, right? You'll often find those agents provide very inconsistent results. So depending on what you ask it, it may give you different responses for the same question fundamentally. And I guess with that lack of governance, that inconsistency in how it behaves, and I guess the fact that these things are difficult to maintain, manage, and update, it's not very helpful, right? And that's why I think a lot of organizations have not really gone down that path and driven success using that beyond very small, simple tasks. I think the way the future is, I think the way that AI will generate huge returns, both across BFSI and other industries, is all around the deployment of predictable AI agents. So those that are aligned to follow strict processes, rules, and standards, those that can be governed and are auditable. Obviously, they can be managed and maintained, so it's possible to, I guess, lift up the lid on the black box and figure out how it all works to an extent with auditability and traceability. But probably most importantly is making sure that it can be orchestrated as part of an end-to-end outcome. So, for example, you may have a series of agents that perform different tasks and different inputs, but actually having the backbone that connects all of those agents in a fully orchestrated way is really where I see this going. And if we go to the next slide, and this for me really sort of paints a picture of what we call the autonomous enterprise, right? And that's really around where agents are, I guess, design, automate, and optimize decisions and workflows. And if we just progress and build out the slide, and through that end-to-end backbone, if you will, it means they're organized around the relevant work that needs to be carried out rather than left to roam in the wild doing their own thing. It means they're architected for reliability with the right governance and continuous improvement built around them, which is fantastic. And I think equally they're built on best practice, right? So that allows them to, decouple, be decoupled largely from any legacy baggage that's out there. They still access the legacy. They still engage with those back-end platforms as they need to. But by elevating that responsibility to this autonomous enterprise, this fully orchestrated end-to-end, it means they're future ready, right? And as I said, the ability to evolve, adapt, and engage with clients then becomes much more seamless and much more future ready. And if we just jump to the next slide. And I think for me, both as Sayer and Pega systems, we see a very proven path towards this, right? Pega as a technology and a Sayer as a systems integrator. We've been doing this for banking and insurance customers and many other, organizations from different industries for many, many years, right? Starting with the idea of taking manual work and driving automation around that, so that you're managing tasks, you're allocating work, and taking that to the next level, then injecting decisions and intelligence into that. And you bring the generative AI play into that today, and that allows us to continue to elevate and evolve that, but ultimately move into the autonomous enterprise where work then is optimized in real time. So look, hopefully that gives you some food for thought, and sets the scene for how we're gonna take this discussion today. And look, with that, I'm going to hand over to Nilesh, who's going to spend a bit of time talking about kind of how we bring this to life and how we build upon AI in the concept of the enterprise. So over to you, Nilesh. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Hi guys, my name is Nilesh here, and as Steve, just to continue from what Steve mentioned, right? When we talk about with the customers from Pega perspective, where we find that most of the customers are actually somewhere between the managed and automation stage, right? Moving and trying to bring in some intelligence and moving towards the autonomous enterprise, right? But as we speak to them, the most of the challenges that they are facing is basically they are trapped in, there are lots of legacy systems right now. If we talk about from the channel perspective, there are different journeys, the different channels have come on during different times, and then they have addressed it using the technology of that time, and that left with some of the broken journeys, right, from the customer point of view, right? So that's one aspect of it. Secondly, when it comes to we look at the backend system or transactional system, there are a lot of data and logic which is actually sitting in that particular those systems and doing things that they are designed to do. It was working fine for so long, but when we're talking about really bringing in that agentic AI capability and not moving towards autonomous enterprise, as Steve was talking about, we face this challenges that because of the silos, the different places, and all that stuff. That's where the challenge actually comes in on how do we get this thing together when we are looking at the holistic customer journey powered by agentic AI, right? And of course, as they are trying to build this, build this thing, the new next version or next gen architecture, they are always stuck with the traditional systems that is not that agile as much as we want to, right? To meet the expectation of today's customer, right? So typically, if you look at the 74% of the organizations, right, and these are numbers coming from the standard standard benchmarks. And we also have been seeing the similar thing, right? That even if there is intention to modernize the journeys, specifically to do it application by application, one of the hindering situation comes from discovery, right? It just takes too long for us to go through the legacy documentation, training docs. There are only few people who knows in depth what's going on in the system, right? And that takes a very long time to figure out what's there in the box, right? And then if you want to move this to a next level cloud ready architecture, then again you can't do it because a lot of things are actually need to figure out how you're going to move, how you're going to handle certain things which the application is doing today when you move to the cloud ready architecture, right? And that's where the challenges are in terms of when we want to try to move to a future-proof architecture and lead towards the optimal direction. So typically what we find is the organization actually at two, I would say the junction point, right? Where they need to decide, should I actually continue using my legacy systems that I have with the constraint that they bring in today and invest more and try to do a wrap around it and try to make it work and keep using it. So that's one aspect of it. Should I do that? Or with the latest and the greatest technology that I want to move towards clouds and all that stuff, should I really look at this digital transformation as Steve was talking about earlier and leverage, employ AI is help to do something, whatever I can do. And that's where Pega actually came up with an idea of blueprint, right? Pega GenAI Blueprint is a blueprint agentic AI capability that is available in the market. We actually, when the GenAI came up a few years ago, Pega architecturally was the best place to actually take this and leverage this GenAI capability across the board, right? As we work with most of the financial services organizations around the globe, we knew that the challenges comes in when we're talking about end-to-end architecture intent, keeping the customer in the center, right? And that's what are some of those things I talked about. So we figure out how will it be good if I have a tool that uses agentic AI and I just dump all these documents to them, to it. It figures out what is in those documents, combine that with a best practice available on the internet, the collective wisdom of the internet, plus the the experience of the vendors like Pega, for example, or in terms of best practices harness over a period of time, and then give me something which would look like my next gen process or my next gen application, right? So that's where the other aspect of it, it comes in, other dimension comes in. So as recently as we have been talking to the customers, they are pretty delighted and excited about what can be done to modernize and move on from the legacy and leverage AI, agentic AI capability to actually do just that. Now, I'm not going to keep talking about this, but let's have a look. So in next few minutes, I am actually going to do a demonstration on how we can actually use a Gen AI blueprint, right? So let me just share my screen. Hope everything is okay. Richard, Steve?
Yes, perfectly.
All right. So what you're looking at is basically Pega Blueprint dashboard. Now, what is Blueprint? Now, Blueprint, just in a simple words, Blueprint is basically a tool which is available online to, you can go and try it out. You don't need any license, anything. Just go to pega.com/blueprint and you can try out your own blueprint to build an application, to conceptualize an application that you want to build, right? So it's an ideation tool from my perspective, which actually allows to bring in the technology and the business people together across the tables and kind of conceptualize, ideate to the application, uh, conceptualize, fine tune, and evolve the application that they need to address their business problems, right? So let's go ahead and create a blueprint, right? I'm going to click on a button called Create a Blueprint. Now, when I do that, the first thing actually it asks, it works across the industry for the purpose of this particular webinar. We are obviously going to select banking. Okay. And then I can click next. As soon as you select banking, system blueprint agent will actually guide you step by step as you are building the application of your dreams, right? So for now in this webinar, I'm going to use loan origination as an example, right? So I'm going to select retail banking. As soon as I select that, it actually shows me which function I want. I am actually interested in lending for now. So I'll just go ahead and select lending. And then, yes, what's my purpose of my application? Well, it's loan origination system. And I can actually type in whatever description I want to my application to do. For now, I'm just copy pasting some instead of typing on this, right? And then I can keep in the U plus bank. Now, what happens is when you type the description of what your application intends to do, right? You can actually, system will actually take this in, built-in Gen AI and LLM models will actually understand this, interpret it, and figure out what needs to be the process, which we're going to through the process. Now it works in multiple different languages, right? And you can actually have a different location selected as well. So this is what we're going to do. But hang on, I just say that I actually want to modernize my existing loan origin system, which is old, green screen terminal. I have the documentation that I want to do it. So would it be good for me to just dump all these things and give it to the blueprint in addition to the description I just mentioned, um, for it to consume so that I'm not looking at something completely different than what I have, but at least it gives them a starting point from there, right? So if you look at some on the right-hand side of the screen, let me just go ahead and upload some assets that I already have, right? When I click on that button, I can actually say, okay, you have requirement documents. So let me just upload the requirement documents that I have. Okay, so I have this legacy document or legacy loan origin requirement document, which I'm going to upload it. And I also have a training guide for me. So I'm going to just upload these two documents, right? Okay. As I upload this, it actually shows me the details. Now, let me also go ahead and show you what are the different assets that we have here, right? So for example, let me just try and open up the documents. Now, these are the documents that I've uploaded. I just uploaded a loan business requirement documents, which is basically a traditional word training document that you can expect, right? So this is one of the legacy document that I have. I also have a training guide, which looks something like this. So what's going to happen is I'm actually uploading all this document that I have. In fact, I actually have a video of my existing application, which looks like a green terminal, as you can see here, right? So what we're going to do is just let's upload all these documents step by step to the GenAI blueprint. We already have uploaded the requirement documents. And now we're going to do let's upload some legacy media, which I have got this MP4 file. Of course, application will have data model. So I do have the SQL for my existing application, right? Which is kind of a DDL, right? And yeah, my process engineering team also has got a BPMN diagrams documented for both loan underwriting as well as for project, right? So I'm going to do that. And then I have one picture, by the way. So I'm just going to upload one flow of the loan image that I want to build in. Okay. So what we have done so far, we have actually uploaded all the documentation. We have mentioned what application we want to build. We have also mentioned what we want this application to do, right? And I'm going to just go ahead, and if you can see this GenAI button here, analyze the content. So as we speak, what's happening here is that Pega Gen AI Blueprint Agent is actually understanding all this documentation. It's using behind the scene the best practices that we have built in as part of our vertical solutions that we offer for financial services. At the same time, based on the expected information from the documents, is also going out to the open internet and harnessing the wisdom that the internet provides in the context of loan origin system that we are trying to build, right? Now, we also work with partners like ASEA and others to actually come up with assessment of the applications that our customers wants to modernize, right? I'm sure Stephen will actually take one case study in there. And when we start doing it, we look at the documentation and we just basically start using it from the blueprints perspective and see what comes up, right? Now, let me also set the expectations, right? What we're expecting is not something 100%, but what we're expecting is something 50, 60% almost there that helps us to move forward much faster, right? So as you can see, it has actually processed all the different 7 different files. It has figured out that this is the functional description. These are the workflows that is embedded in those documents. These are the data objects that were found, right? Customer loan application, etc. And you can see it's more relevant to the loan origins application that we were talking about earlier, right? To begin with, okay? So I've got all this process. Now, what next, right? So as soon as I click on done here, and I say next, system will actually system by now knows what are the traditional information that I have in my existing system, what are the different workflows, data objects, and the personas. Now it's actually starting to build processes based on the research work that is agentic AI is doing behind the scene on behalf of us, right? And that's what we mean by agentic AI, right? I mean, behind the scene is basically doing the research work for you, is building your workflows for you, leveraging those best practice, and there you go, right? We actually have different case types. These are the different processes that system has figured out that's required for us to build this application, right? So for example, you can see loan application, unsecured loan, secured loan, refinance, credit line, etc. Right? Now, it could be possible that I may not find some of the processes that I have seen in my existing system. Not to worry. You can do generate more, which system will generate more case types for you, or you can always add a case type. Just put in the description, put in the time of description, or if you have some BPM and diagram, as I showed you earlier, you can upload those things, right? So basically, right now in the first stage, we actually have got all the case types and the processes that could be the part of this particular loan origination system, right? And now it doesn't stop there. It actually moves in, creates the detailed stages and steps. Because, for example, right, we all know that if I want to create a loan if we want to create a loan application and process a loan application, it has to go through from different stages, right? First stage obviously is to capture the information about the particular product, about the customer, their financial details, etc. Then somebody needs to review the application and all the associated documents that have been be provided, credit underwriting, processing, and then final review check, and then later of offer signing, and then it goes to all the way to disbursement of loan, right? So that's what it's doing right now as we speak. It is basically creating an entire journey from end to end that will constitute of different stages. And for each stage, let's say, for example, capture information, it will also create different activities that needs to happen to complete that step, right? It's also including creating all the data objects that are required, and then also associating the different personas. So let's have a look at it, right? As you can see, system has automatically generated second level of processes for loan, unsecured loan, secure loan, etc. Right? So if I talk about, for example, a secured loan process, you will see that it's actually talking about it has built different stages and steps here. I can move around the steps, right? I can move around like this. For example, I can actually add a stage, I can add a step, I can do whatever I want. And imagine this, right? I am actually a business and the technology users, including the product owners in your organization. They are actually trying to get together around the table in a room and going through this journey step by step and figuring out what needs to be done and evolve from there, right? So system is giving you first cut of the application processes. You can definitely refine this as much as you want. And then based on that, you can add and delete or modify or change based on your specific needs, right? So for example, a product owner can quickly ask the users, okay, is this correct? Do we need to add a field or a step in the process? You can do that. Now you can see here there's all this complete process. It includes human steps, system steps, some decision criteria that you need to involve, as well as the data model for that application, right? So we have got stages and steps, but also what sort of data we're going to need for that, right? Now, in this case example also, I can actually look at this. If I'm not happy with some of the fields, I can delete it. I can actually add a field of my choice, right? Different types and different purpose. And then, or I can actually just simply view the relationship, right? So system is building the application now. As you can see here, this secure loan application process is referring these different data objects, right? So it's actually just give me jump start in terms of viewing all these things. Now, that's this first level process. I can certainly add case types. I can actually also figure out, okay, what should be the different fields for me to create a case, what should be different types of attachment that will be required, and all the way to plan the rollout cycle, right? Release cycle. Do I want to release in MLP1, MLP2, sprint 1, sprint 2, etc., etc., right? So it just helps build a process, evolve the application, but also start doing the planning at the same time, right? Now, if I move to the next step, we are talking about different data objects, right? So as we showed earlier, you have different customer data object, loan accounts, etc. Now, these are the data that will be used as part of this process. You can certainly look at the data model. So if I look at the customer data model, it looks like this. As I said, you are free to change as much as you want, right? Or even add a data object here if you need to, right? And also, if you already have, like just like I uploaded SQL or DDL file, if you have any definite data definition, you can upload that. I'm sure this application will live into an ecosystem which has got not just one system of record, but there could be different data sources. So if you want to add some other system of record and data sources, you can actually certainly add those things right here. Okay. Now, why don't we move on to the next step? Now, what we have done so far? We have provided the purpose of our application. We have provided the documentations that we had for our existing application. It created a workflows at a high level for us. It created the data model for us, in addition to the stages and steps and what needs to happen. Now, the last thing, who's going to use this? Who will be participating in the process? And these are the personas. So as you can see, your system has created the personas for us. Here, you can obviously add personas. In the interest of, I'm not going to do that per se, but I can actually start talking about who will have access control, who should have the access control. Let's say, for example, for the loan application, I'm going to have this control. You can start deciding on access control measures right now, right here. Okay. Now, that's probably the single last step, is it? Actually, no. So once I'm done with that, system actually just gives you entire documentation of whatever you have gone through so far, right? I'm sure when you work in real life, you will actually have multiple teams working together. So you can share this blueprint with and together collaborate to evolve the applications over a period of time. You can download this PDF for the purpose of documentation. You can download this blueprint and then import into your environment. And that's where partners like ASEA team comes into play, and then they will import this blueprint into the environment. And guess what happens? This not whatever we have done is not just for the reference information, is not just for good for you to just read. System actually will import this blueprint, and Pega Agentic here will actually create all these artifacts that you are seeing on the screen right now, which includes the processes, stages, steps, data model, relationships, etc. By the way, if you want to just see how that application is going to look like, you can actually preview this right now. Right. So for example, I can actually create what you're looking at is basically a loan application step. I can look at the details here. I can look at the full life cycle here. This is the browser version. I can actually see how it's going to look like in mobile application, because whatever you build, it can be used across different channels, whether it's mobile, self-service, a tablet channel, conversational channels, etc. So you get this, even your contact center channels, for example, right? So this is how it's going to look like. So customer center channel, a lot of applications you want customers to be able to initiate using the self-service channel. So there you go. You have this capability here, where it shows you how it looks like from the conversation channel, and also the conversational channel, which is like chatbot channel out of the box, right? And this all gets created out of the box, including the DX APIs for the purpose of integration. If you're working with the brokers in case of lending, for example, right? So then you need to expose your applications using a DX API, so you can do that as well. So it just shows you a preview of how an application looked like. What I've done is I actually have created the application, imported that blueprint, and create an application right now. just before I came on this, and I just want to quickly show you how it's going to look like. So this is a blueprint environment that was created for me. What you're going to look at is a Pega App Studio, right? And you will see that system has created all these cases. This is the lower Yori system, which we just created. These are different case types. So if I click on the case types, it actually shows me different case types that you have. And then this is, for example, a home loan case that I created earlier, right? And this is a living, breathing application, right? You can actually do whatever you want to it. I can actually look at the data objects that were there. So what it means from business perspective, what it means from business that your turnaround time, your agility is much more better with using tools like Pega GenAI Blueprint and Pega GenAI, working with partners like SAI to bring this to life within less than 90 days, right? In terms of start when you're talking about legacy modernization and things like that, right? And then you can evolve from there, right? It works all the customer objects that I've seen. There are multiple different things that go on, but in the interest of time, we'll be happy to come back, have a consultation with you together with Steve and his team, Steve and his team to see what needs to be done and what can be done later, right? So probably I'm going to hand it at this juncture. I'm going to hand it over back to Steve yet for him to go through one case study, and then we will be happy to take some questions.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nilesh. All right, so we just jump to the next slide. I wanted to spend a few minutes going through a bit of a case study, right? So, and a very relevant case study in the financial services space. So, one of our customers, a financial services organization, large and international, they were in the process of migrating from a very old version of SAP, so a 30-year-old R3 solution that basically managed and led a lot of their lending processes over to SAP S/4HANA, so in the cloud, right? And I guess as part of that, there's a big focus from SAP around stripping back all of the customizations that have happened in older versions, creating that clean core application and putting that in the cloud. Now, this is a common problem because what do customers do with a lot of that complexity that they've built? So they've stripped it back. They put the clean core in the cloud. Now they've got a bunch of processes, business rules, workflows, decisions that they need to put somewhere, right? And so this is where Pega comes in as a real contender to support and provide that sort of agility layer that sits across the top of core systems like this. Now, in this example, the customer was looking to drive, a level of nimbleness and agility around being able to change and adapt their lending processes quickly. They wanted a future-proof platform focused on sort of AI-driven innovation. So, in sort of unlocking that capability, both for near-term ambitions as well as then, allowing them to grow and scale beyond that. And of course, not let them get into a situation where they were before of having a very old, sort of customized application that they didn't really understand, right? And so, in terms of how we started this journey, the customer had some documentation around their legacy lending workflows in their legacy application. It wasn't complete. It was pretty fragmented, quite robust. They had 300 pages of document, but it wasn't really structured, right? And it wasn't up to date. And so that coupled with the fact they had some time constraints and they had some skill shortages in-house led us down the path of innovation, right? And if we just jump to the next slide, we went down the Pega Blueprint route and actually leveraged Blueprint to ideate and build out their model, if you will, around what that target state could look like. And if you take a traditional approach, this would normally mean a room full of people, many workshops, lots of whiteboarding, lots of note capturing and write-ups, lots of playbacks to really identify and build out that target process, right? And that could take weeks, right? And I think there's some industry research out there that traditional, call it sprint zero requirements exercise, normally takes about 12 weeks on average as an industry standard. So 3 months just to get to a point of saying, right, we now understand what we want to do. Now let's start building, right? And through the power of what Nilesh has shown you with Blueprint, that actually accelerates that enormously. And if we just jump to the next slide, we leverage Blueprint in this example, right? We ingested that documentation that built out the sort of straw man approach of our target state. Again, wasn't 100%, but I guess over a period of 7 business days, we kind of refined and iterated on that blueprint. We took it around to different stakeholders, took their input, took their refinements, again, adjusting it on the fly, moving those steps around within those stages, tweaking the data model, adapting the personas, the permissions, the role-based access control, all that sort of stuff. And actually, after 7 days, we then had what we call a high fidelity blueprint, right? So something that was very well refined, fully signed off and agreed by the business. And we then imported that into the Pega application, greenfield application, and of course, straight away we had a fully functioning end-to-end capability that we can then build upon and enrich, harden, refine, and within 10 working days, we then had an application that we could deploy as a pilot into production, right? Now, again, if we go back to my earlier statement, that would traditionally take, per industry standard, a couple of months just to get to the point of build. But 17 days end to end in this case, using Blueprint, we've managed to accelerate that and actually launch something into a pilot environment in production within a short space of time. And what came with that is obviously a couple of reusable components. And of course, then we deployed that on the latest Pega Constellation UI. So that's a modern industry-leading UX framework that the latest version of Pega now ships with, and is really setting the industry standards around how to engage and drive a succinct experience in a Pega application. And I guess for me, just before I move on, right, really what I want to get out of this slide is the kind of three pillars, right? So you've had an AI-led discovery, you've had the power of Pega Blueprint and our delivery expertise, as I say, that's allowed the customer to drive an outcome, as I say, within a very short space of time. If we just jump to the next slide, and this is my final slide, and I won't talk through all of this in detail, but I guess a couple of things that jump out for me. So one is obviously the speed, so the ability to drive a fast rollout, time to value, right? Record breaking as far as I'm concerned. The total cost of ownership equation was fantastic. So if they were to go down the SAP path 100% and build all of this into SAP, with all the extra modules they would have needed to buy on top of the 4HANA core capability, that would have been a very expensive proposition for them, right? And actually having a Pega application managing all of the business rules, driving that agility and the workflow and keeping SAP core and clean, that TCO equation with license maintenance implementation costs was very refined and very attractive. And I think the final point I just want to sort of leave, and this feeds back to my point around modern UX, is we did a bit of a benchmark before this application or before this process. So tell us about how you rate the application, the legacy application, right? And we did it afterwards, and there was a marked increase in positive engagement around how people perceived the new process, if you will, the new world over the old one, right? So obviously, massive win in terms of IT effort, reusability, and obviously customer engagement off the back of that. So hopefully that drives a little bit of excitement as to what we can do with Blueprint, and how we can actually help accelerate legacy transformation, and really sort of hollow out legacy applications, elevate them into an agility play so that you're able to drive quick and efficient and high fidelity user experience and workflow execution. So thank you very much, everyone. I'll just progress to the next slide, and I guess we'll open up for questions.
Thank you, Stephen and Nilesh, for delivering such insightful and practical perspectives. The way AI and low-code are shaping modernization has never been very clear or more exciting. So now let's move on to our Q&A segment. If you haven't yet posted any questions, I request you to post in the Q&A window. We have received few questions. This one's for you, Steve. Are there good AI-led approaches to accelerate legacy modernization cycles, especially where documentation is fragmented or outdated? So you have something in your experience you would like to highlight?
Well, look, I think but for me the answer to that is Blueprint, right? So in terms of AI-led innovation, right, that idea of using Blueprint as an ideation tool, and actually, leveraging that as the vehicle to take around to different stakeholders, work with them in a very collaborative way to kind of flesh out the target state, receive that input, refine, iterate on that is incredible, right? And as I said earlier, there's lots of AI momentum and AI noise in the market, right? Some of the stuff is fantastic, some of it is kind of smoke and mirrors, right? But for me, Blueprint really hits the nail on the head. It's a fantastic capability, and I think is really going to change the way in which we work with our customers to drive that ideation and build applications.
Thank you, Steve. This one's for Nilesh. For BFSI organization that have multiple legacy apps, how do you recommend prioritizing which processes to modernize first? Does Blueprint help with this assessment?
Yeah. So we frequently come into this kind of situations when we talk to our customers. So what happens is basically the decision to which particular legacy modernization application to go first is it depends on the business objectives that we business objectives from the customer's point of view, right? So what we do is basically we work with partners like Asaya to actually understand the business objectives. And then very often there'll be 2 or 3 different applications will come into play, right? Because depending on their pain points and the goals that they want to achieve, right? So what we do is that for 1 or 2, we basically use things like Blueprint, right? Combined with the experience that we have from our side as well as the partners like Asaya, to work through and go through the blueprint first, come up with some sort of estimation to build to see where we land in terms of time frame, and if that actually matches the objectives that objectives in the time frame that the customer is looking at, right? And that's how we go about actually prioritizing, using Blueprint as one of the tools to give us quick insights on what needs to happen, right? What all efforts will be required, what time will be required, and then so that actually the customer can take a very informed decision, right? So that's how we basically approach this. Unfortunately, no silver bullet. I mean, I can't just put a finger and say, this is the application, let's go with that. But luckily, we have tools that can help us make that informed decisions, and based on the combined with experience that are with our partners and Pega.
Thank you, Nilesh. This question has come for Steve. How easy, tough is the adoption of agentic AI for banks, especially in compliance, heavy environments where audibility and governance are critical?
Very good question. So look, the idea that agentic AI is some sort of, silver bullet, and sort of magic capability that can just be deployed overnight, without any sort of governance or real, execution around that is it doesn't change, right? Whether you're looking at AI agents or more traditional IT development, right? Having the right governance framework is absolutely important. Having the right, project management and execution around that, managing risk, issues, dependencies, etc. Having data availability to support, the agent in the right way to allow them to to learn as well as then derive the right outcome for what's being asked of them. But I think if you look at that sort of maturity process or curve that I talked about, front and center, it's around driving automation, step 1, introduce intelligence, step 2, and then further expand on that with sort of optimized decision making and the autonomous enterprise, and making sure that agents aren't left to do their own thing. They are controlled, they are managed with the right, orchestration backbone that sits behind them to ensure the right handoff between the agents to drive the right customer outcome.
And Steve, if I can add to that, is everybody wants to use our agent everywhere, right? But I think what is important when it comes to audit and compliance, when we work with the customers, is also to determine earlier in the journey what you really don't want agent to do is people generally have a perception going with that, okay, I can do anything and everything with the agentic AI as much as possible. But then there are certain problems that rather not be solved by agents, right? So, and that's where experience from, ASEAN and Steven team comes into play, right? That, okay, what's the best way to do it, right? With regards to ensure that compliance and audit is in place upfront.
Thank you, Steve and Leish. We'll take the last question. That's for Steve. How does ASEA manage integrations between Pega and existing BFSI systems like LOS, LMS, GL, or risk engines during modernization?
Yeah, okay. So I think, for all integration, right? Whether that's with legacy technology or with the latest and greatest, right? It's about making sure that those integration points are identified early in a project process, and the right, again, governance and execution is put around them to make sure that the design of the enterprise and design of the solution, leverages those integrations in the right way, and from a project point of view, they're available at the right time for consumption, effectively, right? Pega as a technology obviously offers a whole range of out-of-the-box capability with respect to integration technologies, if you will. So from your traditional web services through to various I guess more legacy integration types, as well as robotic integration, right, or robotic automation, so that for those applications that are perhaps a little older and don't have readily available APIs, you can use robots to interface with the application and interrogate data and so on. But again, making sure that the right process controls are put around that, and the right skill set is leveraged as well, right? Having the right people with the right skill set on the project is really important to make sure that projects are executed well and the right project outcome is achieved.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen and Nilesh, for sharing your expertise today. And big thank you to our audience for your time and thoughtful questions. I hope you've gained useful insights on how AI-powered low-code can help modernize legacy systems. So follow ASEA and Pega Systems on LinkedIn to stay updated and keep an eye out. We'll be sharing the webinar recording soon. So this concludes our session, Modernize, Integrate, Accelerate the New Age of Legacy Transformation. I wish you a great day ahead and see you in our next webinar. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.